Anton Wahlman from TheStreet.com and also who is involved in equity research out in Silicon Valley joins us now. Anton, thanks for coming on.
Good to be here.
We spoke to you a few weeks ago about the presidential election, and that's definitely not all you write about, but it's what we're going to start with because of something else you wrote recently. You recently wrote just a couple days ago that Romney's VP should be, and I'll let you complete the title there and tell us a little bit about your views.
Yeah, my opinion on what is going to be the most effective VP choice for Romney is that he should go with somebody who has never served in politics, never served in Washington or as a governor of a state or anything of the kind. Specifically, what I think would be most suitable for him is to pick a very successful CEO or equivalent.
And you have one. You have one in particular.
Yeah, I mean, there are many different good choices. Obviously, the one that seems to fulfill essentially every single checkbox is the founder and CEO of FedEx, namely Fred Smith, who, of course, founded that company approximately 40 years ago, having come back from Vietnam. And but there are others, of course. You can imagine Paul Lottolini, CEO of Intel, or John Chambers, who is CEO of Cisco, or even Tim Cook of Apple. So, I mean, those are the types of characters that I think at this particular moment of time, given this particular opponent, I think is going to work the best in terms of winning the White House in November.
Why? What are the reasons that you think the public would be responsive to a CEO, especially in the face of, now we have 2.0001 percenters on the ticket? That really represents us 99 percenters. I mean, how would it work effectively, in your opinion?
I think that this whole drummed up sort of Occupy popularity, I think, is complete nonsense. I mean, if you were to conduct a survey of the people who have taken part of all of these various protests, and even those who sympathize with them more quietly, to the extent that many of those can be found, really, as to how many of them that went out and bought a lottery ticket a month ago, hoping to make over $100 million overnight, seemingly without any meaningful, productive effort, that would be an interesting result. I think that what people want to see right now is to see somebody who seems fairly apolitical, someone who has not had any experience in government, but rather in creating wealth, and to come in and actually turn the government around, fire the bureaucrats, and to cut their budgets down to size. I think that is the type of character now that I think the country is ready for. I mean, I'll give you two examples. 1992, before Ross Perot had a hissy fit and temporarily suspended his campaign because he thought George Bush the Senior was trying to disrupt his daughter's wedding. If you remember your 1992 history very well, he was actually leading in the polls. The only other person that has won the White House in the last century, in fact, that did not have a background in any politics whatsoever was, of course, Eisenhower. Yeah. Every other person that has won the White House has either been a governor, a congressperson, whether it be a senator or a representative. And I think that the country is now ready for somebody like that. I mean, Ross Perot could very well have won in 92 had he not completely blown up. And I think that in his case, what appealed to people was really not his specifics of his particular part of the story, but the fact that he in fact was a successful CEO. I think this is the time when this would work yet again. So
people are essentially crying out for leadership of a non-political sense. Actually,
I think so. I really think so. I think that people are really tired of a traditional politician who, when you just actually hang their resume on the wall and people look at it, I mean, this is not a painting that people will pay money for. I think that if you put, Romney's resume against Obama, I mean, one looks like a complete joke, the other one is rather respectable. And I think that if you hang the resume of any of several major successful CEOs, and I take Fred Smith as an example because if you go and read his resume, just go to Wikipedia, whatever. I mean, you will be sweating and be ready for a nap once you're done with it. And I think you put that against any traditional politician. You don't need to sink as far down on the totem pole as Joe Biden, but you can pick anyone else, and he outclasses them all by a reasonably wide margin. And you could imagine in that case, the campaign slogan writes itself. I mean, we deliver.
Right. That's true. And it's actually one syllable more than the ad I see on every computer page, on every website, where are you in for Obama, which I think they have down to 8 words, 8 letters.
It happens to fit a broader narrative as well, because, I mean, you look here, you have a person who has started a company that essentially every American knows and loves and is directly comparable to a government monopoly that is chronically bankrupt despite its monopoly status. And if it weren't illegal for any company other than the U.S. Postal Service to deliver first-class mail, I mean, they would be gone a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a perfect case of somebody who is a founder, CEO, who started this thing from scratch, literally bet everything on red in Vegas back in '74, going to Vegas with the last 30 or so K that he had in the bank when the company was going under, managed to get home from the weekend with twice as much money as he showed up there, and managed to build a $30 billion sales and $30 billion market cap company.
I didn't even know that story.
I mean, he started this thing. You might recall that Fred Smith attended Yale back in the mid-'60s together mm-hmm. with John Kerry and George W. Bush.
Right.
They were all classmates and good buddies. And he wrote a paper, the one for which he got a C at the time, about how to use this future invention called a computer to come up with a logistics systems for delivering parcels. And everybody laughed at that. But he went off to Vietnam, got 2 Purple Hearts, came back, decided to give it a go. And, the first couple of years were tough. I mean, welcome to the world of startups. And eventually got so desperate when he was running dry on cash, there was no hope of any other financing. We were in the midst of the deepest recession in many, many decades at the time, back in 73, 74, following the Arab oil embargo. And he went to Vegas, put all on red, and managed to get over the hump. And gee whiz, what do we have today? A $30 billion company.
Did he actually play one shot at roulette and put it all on? Is that what you meant?
I'm not sure it was one shot. I mean, it was a weekend.
Okay.
That much we know. It was a weekend's worth of work on the craps tables. Whether he divided it up into a few throws of the dice, I'm not exactly.
No, I was just wondering if it really was one shot on red. Hey, let me ask you a question. I know you're in California, but did you follow the Pennsylvania Senate primary at all? Because we have a businessman, a coal miner who became a coal mine executive who won easily the Senate nomination and is going to go against Bob Casey. I'm talking about Tom Smith, of course, another Smith, ironically enough.
Mr. Smith goes to Washington. I guess that's a good sign. I did not follow that, however,
okay.
So that is not an area where I can contribute.
Let me ask you one more thing about Fred Smith and the challenge for the next president. You make a point that I guess Donald Trump would be the obvious candidate, but "you're fired" should be on the tip of the president's tongue in terms of government workers. And how would a CEO? I mean, this is a leading question. How would a CEO be able to help that?
No, I mean, I think clearly the biggest problem that the government faces now is one where we need some significant downsizing. And I mean, you look at the current sitting president's resume here, and he's never, that I recall, pretty much fired anybody in his life. I mean, he never ran as much as a lemonade stand. I don't think he ever, I don't think he even held a legitimate private sector job. I mean, he never signed the front of a paycheck, and I don't think he's ever fired anybody in any meaningful way. So we have here, this is a long-standing problem in Washington. We get all of these people into power who have never been forced to make any tough decisions. I mean, they're all spending other people's money, and we're getting. I mean, we're the patience is on the table here. With the electric paddles are out, and we are 2 inches away from becoming Greece here, and Greece without a bailout. I mean, when it hits the fan in this country, I mean, it will be really, really ugly, and we need to have somebody with some reasonable experience in basic economics 101 and finance, and certainly, as much as I was not a huge fan of Mitt Romney, I mean, he certainly does bring some things to the party, and I think he could strengthen that part of the resume by going against the grain instead of going with the conventional wisdom of trying to suck up to this or that particular ideological or ethnic or geographic wing of the party. I think he should go for the competency wing, which is to say a businessman. And I think that is going to work extraordinarily well. I mean, just imagine if he could convince, I mean, forget Fred Smith for a moment, who would be, I'm sure, outstanding, but let's say a Tim Cook from Apple, who certainly knows one thing or the other about making billions instead of wasting billions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would certainly resonate a lot more with the American population than another political hack, no matter what stripe that hack comes from.
Interesting. Let me ask you one final question, and pun intended. I want to shift gears a bit here because you write about technology also, and tell us in about a minute or so what we should know about the upcoming release of the Tesla Model S electric car.
Yeah. So Tesla, of course, is the first U.S. car company that's going to come to scale here, where they will start shipping their first volume model here in July. This is a car that in 3 different versions will be able to go 160, 230, or 300 miles on one charge. It's a luxury sedan comparable with a Mercedes S-Class or a BMW 7 Series, and it'll cost starting at $57,000 going all the way up to $108,000. And I think this will be a watershed moment in the history of the electric cars, because it'll show that you have a high-performance car, 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds, with all imaginable luxuries and more, that'll be able to outperform any regular car, and the smoothness and the quietness of sort of propelling this car, I think is going to make it extraordinarily popular. They're planning on selling 20,000 units a year, 5,000 here during the second half of 2012, 20,000 in 2013 and beyond. At the tail end of 2013, the Model X, which is a minivan, starts production, and they hope to sell 10 to 15,000 a year of those. So I think when this thing hits the streets here at the end of July, 90 days from today, I think that you're going to see the automotive press and customer testimonials really change the face of electric cars as we know it. So I think you should very much stay tuned for that. And this is truly the first change in the automotive history here since the first Mercedes rolled off the line in 1886 and the first Ford Model T in 1908.
Anton Wahlman, thestreet.com. Thank you for coming on today.
Take care.